What's up, everybody? My name is Holly. Welcome to Traumedy Hour. Trigger warning for this episode. I discuss my experiences with abuse in relationships and things that are in the vein of domestic violence. So if you're not in a place where you can hear about that right now, please skip this episode. Let's get into it. You know, I've been thinking about something a lot. Famous words of Holly. You know what else I was thinking about? I say that all the time. I am struggling with some things that perhaps could be tied into the last two episodes. I will admit that after the last two episodes, I have been very heavily mentally processing the meaning of life, the origins of life, life after death, casual, topics to just roll around in your head every day. So I've had those on the burner and I'm not ready to go there yet. I'm exhausted. I don't want to talk about the purpose of life when you don't believe in God or an afterlife. So that's something I want to discuss and explore later because I'm still exploring it myself. What is the purpose of my life if I don't believe in God and I don't believe in heaven? What's the fucking point, right? So I'm going to talk about that later on in Traumedy Hour, not today. Today, we're going to talk about the other thing that I've been processing since the last two episodes is my anger and resentment towards men because of my negative experiences. So in the last episode, I was repeating over and over again, I don't hate men, I love men. That's true. I don't hate men. I just am dealing with a lot of pain and resentment and anger towards the male species because of how much hurt has been inflicted on me by men. So this is not casual conversation. I was going to share a little bit more about that, about my experiences and perhaps why I am like this and what am I talking about when I keep saying I'm hurt. And it's a spectrum. It's a very long, broad, wide spectrum of the ways I have been wronged, which I think it's very relatable. I know that I'm not the only one. I am absolutely not assuming that I am the only woman who has these experiences. I can only speak for myself, for my own life experience. I shared a few episodes back the story of my first love. That was a very long saga that went on for years. That was an engagement that got called off. If you want to hear that story, I think that was episode 2 or 3. I don't remember. We're still in the baby stages, so we're in the single digits of episodes still. I don't remember if it was 2 or 3 where I talked about that, but I was going to kind of pick up there and share a little bit more about what has happened since then in my romantic life and what my experiences in serious and casual dating have been. And I'm going to do it tactfully and respectfully. I'm not going to tell you people's names, where they live, who it was, when exactly it was. I just think it might be interesting or relatable or give you some insight into my perspective if I share some of this. So let's go, baby. After that first relationship ended when I was 24, I was 24 when it ended. And as soon as we broke up, I knew that I was going to move away by myself. I was like, I'm getting the fuck out of this place. I'm going to move somewhere by myself and start over and start a new life. So I did. I moved to Seattle by myself in February of 2012, so almost 10 years ago. And I got here in February, and then by March, I was on the dating apps. Well, back then they weren't apps. Back in the beginning of 2012, dating apps like Bumble and Hinge didn't exist, but eHarmony and Match.com and I think Plenty of Fish, and I don't know, there was like other dating websites, but you couldn't like get an app on your phone and be on a dating app within 5 minutes. That was not a thing back then. So I moved to Seattle in February, and by March, I was on Match.com. I paid for a membership, and I was actively dating as a way to get into the new city, try new restaurants, see new things, meet new people, but also it was a pacifier for my pain, I would say. I do not think I was in a place to date whatsoever. I was reeling from the end of that previous relationship, and I was in a moment in my life of very intense transition. I was transitioning into a new city by myself where I had literally nothing and no one. So that's not really a good moment in your life, in my opinion, to seek love. Maybe get settled a little bit, Holly. But when you're 24 and you fucking know everything, and I was young and I thought, I'm in the prime of my life, I'm just going to date casually. I was not looking for anything serious, and I was upfront about that. I just wanted to go on dates and be treated nicely. And unfortunately, that's not how it goes when you are online dating or dating in general, honestly. I went into it thinking I was going to be treated nicely, and I, for the most part, was not. I remember one date, I met this guy on one of those sites, and we had made plans to meet for coffee after I got off work one night. I don't even know what day of the week it was. I was living in the Ballard neighborhood of Seattle, so we agreed to meet in Ballard at this little coffee shop that I like. And I think I was nervous and excited because when I got off work and I got onto the bus, I got onto the right bus, but it was going in the wrong direction. So the bus number was right, but it was going whatever, I think it was going east instead of west or something. So I got on the wrong bus and went the wrong direction. And after like 10 or 15 minutes, I started to realize that the bus is going the opposite direction of where I live. And this young man is about to meet me in an hour, and I have 45 minutes to get there. So I start panicking. I'm already dressed. So I already am wearing a dress, and I look cute because I was working in an office. So I had kind of dressed that day to go on a date immediately after work. And I get on the wrong bus. I'm going the wrong direction. I'm starting to freak out. I'm like, okay, I'm just going to pull the stop thing and get off at the next stop. So I did that, and I got off the bus, and as I'm figuring out, like, all right, what's the next quickest bus home? I had my 4Runner, but I was a bus commuter to work and back because parking was like $350 a month to park at my workplace, and I was not going to pay $350 a month to park there. So I was a bus commuter to save on parking and gas, and I was looking on the app, the One Bus Away app, where's the next bus? Where can I pick it up? Like panicking, trying to get away home before I'm late. Of course, it starts raining. My hair's getting wet. My dress is getting wet. I'm freaking out. I'm texting this guy. I'm like, hey, I'm off work. I'm headed home, but I got on the wrong bus. I went the wrong direction. He offered to pick me up, but I wasn't comfortable with that. So I said, I'll just meet you at the coffee shop, but I'm going to be a little bit late. So cut to me panicking. I'm running. I can't find the bus. I get on another bus. I'm new to town, so I don't know all the buses yet. I've literally only lived here for like 2 or 3 months at this point. Another reason why you shouldn't date too soon after moving to a new place. Like, know where you're going first, right? Know the fucking directions and the streets. I didn't know. So, long story short, I am an hour and some odd minutes late, maybe an hour and a half. This guy, he was older than me. He was in a master's program for family therapy. And I walk into this coffee shop. He has already had 2 coffees and something to eat, and the trash is on the table. I'm drenched from the rain. My hair that I had styled is all fucked up. My makeup is fucked. My dress is soaked. I was like, hey, and of course I'm neurotic. I'm panicked. I'm freaking out. I'm sweating from running in the rain trying to get here. And I had declined his offers to pick me up for the last hour and a half. I'm just, it's cringy. So we were standing in this coffee shop and he was like, well, do you want to get something to eat? You know, I said, I'm so sorry you've been waiting this whole time. Next to the coffee shop was a sushi restaurant. So I said, let's walk next door. I would like to get some dinner. I'd like to talk. And like, thank you so much for waiting. I feel like a complete jackass. Like, I was definitely calling myself out. I'm new to town. I didn't know what bus I was on. I'm so sorry. Like, it's literally never happened. I was telling him the truth. Those are all true things. So we go next door. We sit down. We have sushi. He's dressed in a collared office shirt with a tie. So I assume he came from work too. But I don't actually know. He was very dressed up, and he asked me a lot of, now that I think about it, honestly, he was back then what I am now. Oh, I'm a fucking idiot. So he asked me a lot of therapist type questions right off the bat. How do you feel about tattoos? How do you feel about kids? What's your relationship like with your parents? I was not prepared for the intensity and the like level of seriousness that his questions were, so I couldn't participate in that conversation very well. I had not done the emotional work that I've done at this point in my life. Back when I was 24, I was not very self-aware. I was not in touch with my trauma. I had no concept of like where I was emotionally. I already should not have been dating. And then this guy who's on the opposite side of the spectrum, who was clearly looking for a wife and knew exactly what he was looking for, is sitting here with me, rain drenched in a sushi restaurant. And, you know, he's like, well, I have a couple of like tattoos. I got some sleeves of tattoos, and some people don't like that. And I was like, oh my God, that's so hot. Meanwhile, this guy is not interested in me, but I'm not really picking up on that. I should say I'm not self-aware enough to realize he's not vibing. I'm vibing. I'm panicked but vibing. Put that on my gravestone. Panicked but vibing. That's me. So we have sushi. After sushi, I invite him to the bar next door on the other side of the building to meet up with me and my friends, and we're going to sit and enjoy the open mic that's happening. I don't know. I thought that was cool at the time. I thought that was super chill, and I was like, oh, just hang out with me and my friends. We'll grab a beer, listen to some live music. No big deal. He was like, I think I'm good. I'm going to end the night right now. And I said, oh, okay. We're standing outside at this point. He had paid for the sushi and we wrapped it up. He was like, oh, I think I'm good. I'm not going to join you. And I said, okay, well, I had a really good time. It was great to meet you. Text me later. Bye. And I ran off with my friends thinking I'm like super cool and casual. And I texted him the next day and was like, thank you so much for dinner last night. Again, I'm so sorry for being late. Like, I tried to do the right thing. And I didn't hear back for like a couple days. And then he sent me the breakup, you know. It was great to meet you, but I don't feel chemistry. He was not vibing. I was vibing. I was vibing with the chaos because it's all I know. So that didn't work out. And I had a few other dates like that. I mean, I definitely had a few. I don't actually remember when in the timeline of dating this was. I went on a date with a different guy who was older than me. I think he was like 37, 38, well over, like he was like 10 or 12 years older than me, and maybe more than that. we had a few good dates and we really enjoyed each other's company. There was a bar that I knew the owners and I had played music there, and we went there for one of our dates, and he was literally open mouth making out with me and draping his legs over me while we were sitting in this bar. Like he was about to sit in my lap and make out with me. And I'm in my late 20s, he's in his late 30s, and I was completely turned off by that, and I never saw him again. I broke it off. Dude, I'm having flashbacks. I remember ending it with him in text messages, and he was so hurt and bummed and did not want me to end it, but it was like, I understand, you know. I didn't have the balls to say like, well, maybe like let's pump the brakes on the like making out in a bar where I know the people that work here, and like you're putting your legs on me, like you're gonna sit on my lap. It was very weird. We were sitting on like a couch. You know, a lot of what happens is my boundaries get pushed in a way that I'm not comfortable with. And because of the tense dynamic between being a young woman in the presence of a man that you don't know very well, you can't just say that your sexual forwardness is making me uncomfortable. And it might seem like that's the right thing to do, is to tell these men like what's happening. But to this day, I'll share an example from just like, I don't know, a couple weeks ago. To this day, I am terrified of men hurting me and stalking me or screaming at me or making me feel unsafe in any way. I'm absolutely terrified. So I hold back and try very delicately to end things in a way that will not result in me being hurt or stalked or harassed. It's absolutely exhausting and has very much impacted my interest in dating. So when I'm ending these relationships, I'm not able to do it in a direct way. I wasn't able to tell that guy why I didn't want to see him anymore, even though he was like, I'm confused. We were having a really good time. And I was like, yeah, but it's just not, it's not working for me, you know, or whatever. Just some vague, like, this is why women are vague, and this is why we ghost, and this is the answer, because I am scared shitless, and I know I'm not the only one. The threat is real. It's very real. And I am a strong, aggressive woman. I don't generally take shit from people, but I'm terrified. I live alone, you know, and I was living alone back then. I don't, you know, it was like, I don't have, like, what am I going to do? Fight this fucking guy? So I had always like protected myself. I wasn't telling people where I lived. I didn't tell people that I lived alone. I used to pretend that I lived with my brother or with a friend, and I would say that casually in conversation, that my brother's my roommate, you know, just to let that guy know you can't just show up a peeping Tom in my window. You know, I live with people, quote unquote. I don't live with anybody, but I used to tell men that when I was dating them, because I was terrified that they were going to know where I lived and try to follow me. I've been followed before. Strangers from the bus have followed me through downtown Seattle into the lobby of my office. I have definitely been followed, and I have definitely been threatened, and it's at the point where I expect it. And I don't like that. It's making me bitter and resentful and exhausted, which is why I'm talking about it in this podcast, because I think raising awareness about it is also important. So I had a lot of safeguards in place. I never told men where I lived, not even the cross streets. And I would tell them the neighborhood, but that was it. And I never gave them my address ever. No one was ever allowed to pick me up or drop me off. Nobody could ever know where I lived. And I used to pretend that I had roommates or lived with my brother or something so that they would be scared to stalk me. There was one guy that weaseled his way through these boundaries. That was the first and the last time that ever happened, because it resulted in exactly what I didn't want, which was an assault in my apartment. And it was... this person I met on eHarmony. His name was Jack, which I'm saying it now because it was not a real name, as it turns out. His name and his phone number turned out to not be real when I went to report him. So Jack asked me out for coffee, and we met at a Starbucks. That was like a halfway point because he lived almost an hour away. So we met halfway at a Starbucks, and I took the bus again. And when I got to the Starbucks, he was already seated and having a coffee. I'm just going to say right now, we're going to take a minute. First red flag. If a person who has asked you on a date cannot wait for you to get there before they order, get the fuck out. Just get out. That is so egregious. Just, what are you doing? Go get coffee by yourself and don't invite me on a date. If it's that urgent, get a coffee before you get there. Drink a coffee in the car. I don't know. I just think it's incredibly rude to order and sit there drinking coffee while you wait for the person who you invited to coffee. And to be fair, I was not late. I was right on time, maybe a little bit early. He had no excuse to order coffee before I got there. So then it's like awkward. And he was like, oh, if you want a drink, go ahead and get it. Oh, no. Oh, he got his drink first so he didn't have to buy mine. Okay. Also a reason. I mean, that's a red fucking flag. That's the biggest red flag. I didn't know it to be a red flag at the time, but I do now. So I have to wait in line at Starbucks and get my coffee. And then we sit and we talk, and it's kind of awkward. I remember feeling like this guy doesn't really know. He has no game. He doesn't know how to converse with a woman. He wasn't really looking me in the eyes. Another red flag, which I just assumed he was shy and nervous to be on this date. So after a little bit of chatting at Starbucks, we are like, okay, this is kind of nice. And he said, are you hungry? Do you want to get something to eat? And I said, well, sure, like let's grab a meal and then I gotta go. We walk next door to the Thai restaurant. We get Thai food. We sit, we talk about our families. We talk about how we ended up in Seattle and what we like to do and blah, 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 blah. And I was having a really nice time. We talked for, I don't know, a couple hours. And then I said, all right, well, it's time for me to go. I'm going to go home. I got to catch the bus. And this is where he proceeds to pressure me to give me a ride home. Let me just give you a ride home. Like, I feel really bad. It's like a 45-minute bus ride for you. I have a car. Like, I could just take you home. In the back of my head, I'm like, yeah, it would be way less time and way less of a hassle if you would drive me home. But I don't feel safe. And I ignored that voice. I ignored my intuition and I let him drive me home. And I was giving him directions to the general cross streets. I did not like text him my address. We were in the car together and I said, these are the cross streets I live on in this neighborhood. Like, go this way, go that way. And I remember being in the car. We were talking about music. We were playing songs for each other on the radio or whatever. And then we were talking about songs we know how to play. I was like, yeah, I know how to play guitar. You know, guys are like, let me play Wonderwall. Being a musician is like a double-edged sword. Anyways, I'm like, yeah, I know how to play too. I can play Bob Dylan too. Like, I'm so impressed by your guitar skills, bro. We were just talking in the car and we get to my street and I get out and I say, thanks for the ride. I had a nice time. I'll hit you up. He's like, I have to go to the bathroom so bad. I have to pee so bad. Is there any chance I could come in and just pee really quick? I am like screaming inside. Don't do it, Holly. Don't do it. But I have been groomed to not upset men. And I felt guilty making him go pee somewhere else. It was the middle. This wasn't even at night. The sun was still out. It must have been like around dinner time. I don't remember. Anyways, he's like, please just let me go pee. It'll be really quick. I'll be in and out. Like, I just didn't want to come in really quick. Of course, this is a ruse. We go into my apartment, which is actually a mother-in-law unit beneath someone's house. And I knew I had become friends with the people who owned it. Obviously, I was their tenant. So it was a family who I still love and know all these years later. I love you guys. And I went downstairs with him. We went, I had my own entrance, my own kitchen, everything, but it was just underneath their house. So we went around the side gate, went underneath into my unit, and he goes to the restroom, and I'm just sitting on the couch. I'm like, okay, get the fuck out of here. What did I do? I'm very, very nervous. And he comes out all casual, oh my gosh, thanks so much. I had a really good time. Oh, is this your guitar? Well, let me play you that song I was telling you about. And he gets my guitar off the stand, and he's playing, and he sits next to me on the couch because I had been sitting there waiting for him to go to the bathroom. I was so nervous. I didn't know what to do with myself. So yeah, he's playing guitar, and then I just don't have the balls yet. I don't have the balls to say, hey, I got other things going on today. You need to go. I didn't have the balls to say that. So I was just yeah, okay. Trying to make it awkward for him so that he would get the hint and go. I should have definitely been direct, but I didn't know how to do that. And he puts the guitar down, and he was like, oh, you know what else I'm really good with? Let me give you a massage on your neck. And he starts massaging my neck and my back and my shoulders. And I'm wearing a dress and a cardigan, and he's massaging me, which turns into him pinning me down on the couch and holding me down and trying to move my dress up as he's holding me down on the couch. So this man is in his late 20s and is very, very fit and has big muscles, bigger than mine. And I don't know anything other than the last couple hours of us chatting. I don't know anything about him. I don't know his last name. I don't know where he works. And these things are going through my head. I'm like, this motherfucker is a complete stranger and could choke me out on my couch right now. He could literally suffocate me and kill me. He could break my neck. He could put me in a chokehold, and I'm done. So I'm thinking about this as this man is on top of me, holding me down on my own couch in my own home. And he's got one, I don't even really remember the position, but he had one of his arms holding down my chest and my shoulders because I was trying to squirm. And then his other hand was pulling my dress up. He was laying on top of me trying to take my dress off while holding me down. And the only thing that I could think was, all right, make him as uncomfortable as possible without panicking. Get him to willingly stop. That was the only thing I could think of. And to do that, I just said, all right, I need him to know I don't consent. I do not consent. And I just said it in that voice over and over and over. It felt 100 times. I do not consent. I do not consent to this. I want you to get off. I do not consent. This is not what I want. I didn't scream or cry or hit him. I was just squirming and saying, I don't consent to this. This is not what I want. And eventually I squirmed out from underneath him. He didn't even get off of me hearing me say that. This all happened in the span of a few seconds, but it felt like a fucking hour. It felt like eternity that he was holding me down on that couch. I remember exactly what I was wearing. I remember what the couch looked like and where it was positioned in the apartment. What he looks like is a blur. I don't remember what his face looks like. I don't remember what he was wearing. He did not succeed in getting me undressed. Thank God. He had pulled my dress up so you could see my whole tights. I was wearing pantyhose and underwear. You could see all of that. And I just stood up and got my shit back in order. And I said, you need to get the fuck out of my house right now. And he was like, oh, I'm really sorry. Oh, sorry to upset you. And he was like, good luck with everything. He was didn't know what to say. awkwardly left. I closed the door and locked it and immediately started bawling my eyes out. I was panicking. I remember I called my little brother who had just moved to Seattle, and I said, you need to come over right now. I can't explain, but I need you to come over here. And then he came over to keep me company, and I called another guy that I had been dating also. Like, I had been casually dating him during this time, and I called him and I said, I just had a date and he assaulted me in my apartment. Can you please come over? I need to feel like there's people here. Like, I'm freaking the fuck out. So he came over. I do remember him trying to gaslight me not that long after, like hours later. He had driven home, and then when he got home, he texted me that I'm sorry you were uncomfortable. It was like he sent a backwards apology in a text. Was like, sorry that you were uncomfortable with that interaction. And I said, you assaulted me in my home. Don't ever talk to me again. And I think that was when I went to go report him, and he had blocked me and his phone number wasn't real. Yeah, I went to try to report Jack and his profile was gone. He had completely disappeared, and then I Googled his phone number, and it was a Google Voice phone number or whatever the fuck, and I was like, this motherfucker's name is not Jack, and that's not his phone number. He's out here assaulting women, and I didn't even get to stop him. So that was one experience, and never again have I ever told a man that I live alone or where I live. I don't tell them the apartment complex. I don't tell them my living situation. Not until sometimes if it comes up in conversation, like, oh, I have my own place. When you're in your 30s, that's pretty expected. But I just say, yeah, I have my own place and I have my own like protection measures. You'll never know what those are. I got security cameras and you can see them in my living room and my kitchen. And yeah, I think what scared me the most was that it could have very easily turned into a true crime story that we all watch on TV. It could have been, all he had to do was slide his arm up my chest a little bit further and he would have been choking me out. It was inches away from unconsciousness. And if he were bold enough, he could have rendered me unconscious and raped me and left me in my apartment, and there would have been nothing I could do about it. It's fucking insane to think about that. It's so crazy. That experience absolutely tainted my views, and I don't think I was online dating after that for a while. The guy that I was actively dating casually, we continued to see each other, the one that had come over that day. We continued to see each other. He was very understanding and respectful and gentle and kind. And we dated for a year and then we got married. We got married on the 1-year anniversary of our first date. And there's no way in hell he's listening to this podcast. So I'm trying to think of how much I can say. A lot of you probably remember me getting married. We had an interesting relationship. I was still spiraling from the previous breakup, but didn't really know it. I was spiraling from my negative experiences that I was having dating. So I started dating that guy. Looking back on that relationship, absolutely red flag city pretty much the whole time. I was a sitting duck. I was a target for this man because I was easily manipulated and he was manipulating me. I was easily controlled and he was controlling me. That relationship was pretty okay for the whole year we were dating. We did not have a lot of high conflict. But there was definitely, in retrospect, a high level of manipulation and control happening. And then because I was not in a good mental place, I remember when we talked about getting married and I was like, you know what? Let's just fucking do it. Who cares? What's the worst that can happen? We get a divorce? Like, the fuck? I've been doing everything right my whole life and it all exploded in my face. So what the fuck does it matter? Doing things right doesn't even make sense anymore because it doesn't work out. All these promises that men had made to me my whole life and never held up. I don't know. I was just like, oh, my dad promised to protect me and take care of me for the rest of my life. That didn't fucking happen. My last fiance promised to take care of me and protect me for the rest of my life. That didn't fucking happen. I was like, so what? What? I'll just protect and take care of myself and marry somebody I don't really know. And what's the worst that can happen? The worst has already happened to me. That's how I felt. Which, if you're wondering, that's not a great way to enter into marriage. Okay. If that's your mindset, go to a therapist. I was not in therapy at this time. No, therapy never crossed my mind. I had no idea that I needed a therapist and I was not pursuing one. So I basically elope with this guy. We get married like within 2 months of having the idea to get married. We had a very small ceremony in the backyard where an officiant wed us. And then we had a honeymoon in Sun River, Oregon at this. Yeah. So we got married. We had like 80 people there and it was super fun. I can't deny that. The wedding was actually hella fun. We had a really good time. We spent our wedding night in a really nice like vintage hotel in downtown Seattle. We left the next day for our honeymoon in Oregon. During all this, I'm sharing pictures on social media. Like, things are going so well. I found the love of my life. Like, all the cringy social media things that couples do. I was totally doing that. And I think what I was trying to do was like force those things to be real. But the reality of that marriage was very different. I was being manipulated and controlled the entire time. And of course, after we got married, it very quickly escalated. We got married the second week of May, 2013. And then 2.5 months later, the 4th of July weekend, I came home from work and I was walking up the path and he was sitting in a chair on the patio and he said, "We need to talk." And I was like, okay. I was just like, what the fuck? We had been arguing. The screaming matches started almost immediately. We had a huge blowout argument, like before the wedding even, screaming about how to arrange the furniture in the living room. I could not understand why we were arguing about that. I didn't get it. I didn't get like, why was he being so controlling about where the furniture sits in the living room? Like, let me decorate my fucking home, bro. Yeah, we had the explosive arguments started maybe like 2 months before the wedding. I definitely felt hesitant to get married, but I did anyways because I was reeling, I was insecure, I was desperate. I wanted to feel loved and wanted. I wanted someone to take care of me. And I definitely had a lot of unspoken, unknown expectations waiting in the wings that I didn't consciously realize I expected from this relationship, but that came to light after we got married and these expectations were not being met. So we get married, we do the wedding and the honeymoon, and we post the cute pictures, and everyone thinks everything's going so great. Unless you're in the relationship, then guess the fuck what? It's not going well at all. 2.5 months into the marriage, I come home, 4th of July weekend. I'm about to be off for 4 days or whatever. I don't even remember. And he says, "We need to talk." We go inside, we sit down. And he said, "I don't like you. I don't like this. This is not what I wanted. I feel like I don't know you. I don't like the person that you are." And basically he was just like, "I don't want to do this anymore." Which, to insecure 24-year-old, I mean, how old was I? I was 25 now. But I'm not stable or secure. I don't have any self-esteem really. I was like, no, you don't get to leave. And my response to him in that conversation was, I was wounded and livid. My reaction was, absolutely not. You made a commitment to me, and everyone else got to back out of their commitments to me, but you don't. And I was like, this motherfucker thinks he's going to leave. And I refused to let him end the relationship. Which I'm laughing because I'm like, God, Jesus fucking Christ, that's psycho. That is absolutely psycho on my part. But again, I was codependent and I was completely delusional. And I said, no, I'm not gonna, there's no more, like, I've run out of abandonments, okay? All abandonments have been used. Like a fucking deck of cards, you know? Uno reverse, bitch, you gotta stay. And we started arguing about that. He wanted out and I said, no, you had to go to therapy. We had to make this work. You don't get to just give up 2.5 months in. So then we went and found a therapist who was actually a therapist in training, still getting the rest of their hours for their certificate or whatever. This guy did not know what to do with us. We were way too fucked up for him to handle. I remember the look on this man's face, listening to me and my husband scream at each other in the therapy office. We were having literal yelling matches to each other's face in front of a therapist. It was so incredibly toxic. And what was happening in these arguments was some of the highest levels of gaslighting and manipulation that I've ever witnessed. He was gaslighting the absolute bejesus out of me. Worse than the other relationship I talked about with the cheating. This gaslighting was out of this world. It was insane. I literally felt like I was losing my mind. I remember asking my mom, like, do I need to check myself into a psych ward? Because I don't think my brain is okay. This man is crumbling me one brain cell at a time. I just remember feeling fucking crazy. And that's what happens. They make manipulators and narcissists, they make you feel insane so that they can continue on with their charade, you know? And that's exactly what he was doing. So it definitely, another Uno reverse. I forced him to stay when he wanted out so quickly. And I was humiliated also. I was like, I just ended a relationship. I can't end this one. Okay. I was humiliated and terrified and felt abandonment all over again. And then it's like, I entered into the cycle of trying to stay with someone who doesn't want to stay with you. And that is a whole laundry cycle of its own. Okay. Not good. Not good at all. So we're screaming and fighting, and therapy is obviously not working. We went to quite a few sessions. Nothing ever happened. What I wish would have happened is someone to identify him as a narcissistic abuser and said, you guys need individual counseling. You can't go to couples therapy with a narcissistic abuser. Then they just get dirt and use it as weapons later. They get information from the therapy sessions on what you're scared of, what you feel insecure about, what's hurting you. And then later on in arguments, they're going to weaponize it. And guess what? That's exactly what happened. He turned everything from therapy into an argument and a weapon later. I had to hear about all my deepest fears and concerns and my deepest pain. I had to hear it later in arguments being used as weapons against me. So this marriage deteriorated rapidly. We were on the fast track to hell, baby. We got married in May. By July 4th, he wanted out. By Thanksgiving, I moved out. And I went rogue. I got off social media. I stopped replying to phone calls and text messages. I was imploding. I was ashamed. I was being abused. I was being psychologically abused. I was being emotionally abused. I was being verbally abused. And I was dying on the inside. I was barely even alive, barely existing. I wasn't eating. I lost a lot of weight because I remember I couldn't eat all day. I was absolutely sick to my stomach. And the stress was giving me migraines. It was giving me stomach aches. I was leaving work early a lot from feeling sick from the stress. I had to go get an eye exam. I got examined for like migraines and they were like, everything's fine. I was going to the doctors and they're like, nothing's wrong with you. You're in perfect health. We don't know why you feel like this. And I'm not telling the truth about my relationship and I'm not really connecting the dots yet. So I'm physically, emotionally, and mentally deteriorating very rapidly because of this relationship. So I moved out the week of Thanksgiving, that same year that we got married, not that long after the wedding. And I don't think I even told anybody. I was so ashamed. And when you're in an abusive relationship, it's the most isolating. It's like quarantine on steroids. Now we all know what quarantine feels like, but it's this utter soul deep isolation where you feel like you're insane and alone and you're embarrassed of your choices. And it's like, how did I end up here? How can I let this man talk to me like this? Like, what the fuck is wrong with me? You can't get out. You're drowning. You're fucking You're in the ocean alone with no life raft, begging for help, but you don't have words. It's miserable. It's so bad. It's a horrible place to be. And I was deteriorating very quickly. I couldn't eat. I didn't have anyone to call. I didn't have any money. I didn't have any resources. I didn't have anyone that I knew to call for help. So I remember calling my boss. My boss and I had a good relationship and she really liked me. My boss knew about my relationship. She and I were talking while I was dating. She was a little bit older than me, not too much. And we had become like kind of like sisters in a way. She was kind of like a big sister. I remember thinking of her the day that I moved out. It was a big old argument. It's kind of weird to like go back there because this was another assault in my home on me. We were arguing about ending the relationship and I had money in my wallet for rent. And he brought it up in the argument, where's the rent money? Give me that money before you get too mad and you don't pay rent. And I said, I'm not giving you that money. That's my money in my wallet that I earned at my job. Do not get money out of my wallet. And let's finish our fucking argument, you coward. So he's like, no, I want the rent money before we continue fighting because I'm scared you're not going to pay rent if we keep fighting. Classic abuser behavior. He goes and gets my wallet from wherever it was sitting and we end up in a physical altercation, tussling over the wallet, wrestling over it, screaming, and I knew in the back of my head that I needed that money to get out of the relationship. I didn't want him to get the money. It was like $800 in cash for the rent, for my rent payment. So I don't know. It's all blurry because I have not only like done therapy and EMDR for this type of stuff, but I have also blocked it out on some level. I don't think about this actively, but I'm starting to wonder as I say all this, if I'm not actively processing these things, to the fullest extent that I need to, can I really recover? Am I going to stay angry and alone forever because of these things that happen to me over and over and over? You know, how many of these things do I have to process? I'm so tired. I'm tired. I feel emotional thinking about this. That was not the only physical altercation that we had. This man never raised a hand and smacked me, but we had wrestling altercations over personal property that he was trying to take from me. One of those was the wallet and the money, and a couple of times it was my phone. He would often go through my phone in the middle of the night when I was asleep. More than once, I woke up in the middle of the night and found him in the living room going through my phone and my computer. I remember looking at him and saying, "What are you doing?" And he didn't have anything to say. And I said, "You're not going to find anything. Keep on looking. I'm going back to bed." And because I'm not a cheater or a liar, there was nothing for him to find. And I knew that. I was just like, this man is fucking insane. And he downloaded all of my computer history onto his computer. He was a computer engineer. I found that out because he started copy pasting things to me that I had said to a previous boyfriend to fuck with my head. And that is some high level psychotic narcissist. Okay. He was texting me, and I remember getting some text messages, and I'm like, this is not him. I think it was when we were separated. I don't even remember. I remember thinking, this is not him. He doesn't talk like this. This is not his syntax. That's not his vibe. These are not the words that he uses in conversation. And I didn't recognize these messages right away, but I went through my phone. I started sleuthing through my phone to see if he found these messages somewhere on my phone. They were messages I had sent to a previous boyfriend years prior that he had recalled from deleted history and downloaded and copied them and pasted them to me. Next level psychotic narcissist behavior for sure. And I endured it for as long as I could take it, which I moved out in November. He gaslit me and manipulated me into moving back in 3 months later. Where are you going to go? How are you going to afford to live? I want you to take your time. I don't want to rush you, but I just want you to think about, what is it that you want? He lavished, gifts, very thoughtful gifts that he would give me, meet up with me and give me things. Can we start over? I want to start fresh. Let me take you out. Let's date. I don't want this to end. The cycle, that is a classic abuse cycle. I didn't know it at the time, but I know it now. At the time, I was very confused and I had whiplash from the back and forth with this fucking guy. And I don't know, dude. The day that we fought over the wallet, I remember I called that boss and I said, I'm in a situation that I can't really talk about, but I need someone to come here with a van or a truck and help me move all of my things. And my boss said, say no more. Text me your address. I'll be there in an hour. And again, this woman who I didn't meet at church, who I didn't meet through my family. I met her independently through my job that I got, and she was my boss. And she cared about me. And she came immediately with a van that she rented at a car rental place. She couldn't get a moving truck at the last minute, so she rented this giant van from like Enterprise or whatever and came straight to my house, and we loaded up. My husband at the time went upstairs while we loaded every fucking crumb, every last thing that belonged to me. I loaded up in the van and I said, take me to my friend's parents' house. And I had a friend at the time, her parents had a couple empty bedrooms, and she dropped me off there. I had arranged to like stay there, and I just was like, I can't explain, but I'm having a crisis and I need somewhere to stay. Like, I just got help without explaining what was going on. I never told anybody, really. And what happened when I was staying at my friend's parents' house, that was when I kind of wasn't really eating. I was barely functional. I was absolutely surviving one day at a time. And the parents of this girl that I used to be friends with, who I am not friends with anymore, they were very conservative Christians who began pressuring me and manipulating me into not leaving my marriage. God wants you to be married. It's not his will that you get divorced. And they sat me down and talked about their marriage and the problems they've had, and we worked it out in therapy, and God can heal. And I started to feel really uncomfortable, as you might imagine, because I knew more than they did. I knew that this man was capable of very scary things, and they didn't know what they were talking about. But I felt so uncomfortable with them that I decided to move back in with him, because he was saying the right things and they were not. So I went back to my husband at the time and moved back in, and that didn't last long either. There was a time that another time we were fighting in the morning. I was wearing a silk bathrobe, and we were standing in the kitchen, which had a sliding glass door to the backyard. And he was screaming at me and opened the sliding glass door and pushed me outside, closed the door, and locked it. It was November or December. It was the winter. It was maybe 35 degrees outside, and I was barefoot and naked and only wearing a silk bathrobe because I was about to take a shower and get ready for work. And I was banging on the door, screaming, not screaming, but like yelling, "It's cold. Can you let me in? Like, this is fucking crazy." And he just stood there staring at me on the other side of the glass door and didn't want to let me in. So then I went around, I was banging on the front door. He wouldn't let me in, and I said, "I'm going to call the cops if you don't let me in." And he would not let me in. And it was freezing ass cold outside. And this went on for like 15 or 20 minutes of me trying to get in the house, checking windows, banging on the doors. And he just would watch me like, bro, just thinking about that. What unbelievable psychotic behavior. Watching me panicking and freezing, begging to come back inside. And he just stood there with a completely blank look on his face, watching me. So I called the cops, and the cops came immediately. I said, "We're having a domestic dispute. He has locked me outside in a bathrobe." And I said, "We're arguing verbally. We haven't had any physical altercation, but the cops talked to us. They separated us. They scolded us about domestic violence. And one of the officers was like, is this the life that you want? Is this really what you want?" And he was like, "It doesn't have to be like this." You don't have to stay in this relationship. And I was like, yeah, you're right. This is some crazy ass shit. And I moved out. They said, we can't leave you both here. We're not allowed to like come to a domestic violence call and then just be like, all right, good luck, you guys. See you later. We got to separate you. Someone's got to go to a hotel. Someone's got to go somewhere else. And I said, oh, I'll go. I'm getting out of here. And I moved out again. Again, I can't really remember the like actual timeline. This is all happening in 2013, early 2014. So my memory's foggy. Those things, those arguments, those interactions happened. I'm just not clear on what order they happened in. So we got married May 2013, and I officially moved out the end of August. I officially moved out the end of August of 2014. When his behavior started to escalate is when I started to plot an exit strategy. I was very scared of where I would go and how I was going to take care of myself because I didn't have family. And I luckily had friends at this point, and they had moved into a new house together. 3 of my friends moved into a 4-bedroom house in my favorite neighborhood. And I helped them move in. I was acting like everything was fine. I hadn't told anybody these things were going on, you guys. I didn't tell anybody. Even the people that came to rescue me in those moments where I called for help, I didn't tell them what was happening. I just said, I can't explain it right now. And no one asked questions, which I get it. That's like appropriate in the moment. But I just want to emphasize that I don't want anyone to hear these stories and be like, oh my God, I had no idea. Why didn't she call? I didn't fucking call anyone. I didn't tell anybody. Okay? When you're being abused, you don't know how to use your voice because the abuser has taken your voice away from you and gaslit you and made you feel insane and told you you're an idiot and no one's going to listen and no one's going to believe you. And I've done nothing but treat you good and I've given you all these things and blah, 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 blah. And then you get confused and you get whiplash about your own experience of reality. I'm getting emotional because I'm frustrated that these things happen to me. It damaged me and I'm not recovered. It's not fair. I'm angry at him, but I'm also angry at me, like, I don't know. It fucked me up. It was more shit on top of the previous shit I had already been through. And I'm still working through it. It's really hard to trust, to let your guard down. I told you guys I was going to be real. I'm being real. It's really hard now now I'm really facing the repercussions of this relationship because I'm struggling. I'm struggling to find love. Okay. I'm debating if I should stop because I'm very triggered. I'm going to try to be authentic, but also understandable. I'm still dealing with the effects that had on me. Because I'm scared of everybody. I'm so scared to be vulnerable in a romantic relationship. It feels safer to look into my camera and say how I really feel. Because my camera's not gonna hurt me. You know? My podcast isn't gonna turn around and abuse me. I hope. It's easier to do this and be vulnerable here than it is in a relationship. I'm just scared. I'm scared of what men can do to me because I've seen it and I've experienced it. And I'm not the same. I definitely miss some of who I was before. These things all happened. It's like a piece of your light leaves every time. I was not expecting to get so emotional. But I think it's important, honestly. This is how I feel right now. And these stories are so painful. Those experiences were very painful. And they're common, you know? I know some of you who are listening to this have experienced the same, and I hope you'll message me because it's always nice to feel, like you're not alone. And I do think awareness about this is really important because maybe men don't realize the lasting effect that this has. I don't know. I've had to watch every single man that has hurt me move on and get into relationships that are seemingly happy and loving. And, I haven't really had the same experience in the aftermath. I'm still wounded. They clipped my wings. I really tapped into something here. This has all right. So I definitely got more emotional than I was expecting, and I'm not going to apologize for that. I'm being authentic. I'm honoring my feelings in the moment, and I think that's a good thing. So I'm not going to edit this out, and I'm not going to apologize. I'm going to use this for a greater purpose, which is to share with other people what it's like in those situations, They don't put this on the Disney Channel. um, yeah, that marriage did a fucking number on me. Just like the 8-year relationship before it where he cheated. It was 2 blows to the gut and my whole life. Then I ended up moving in with those friends who got a house together, and I had a really hard time. The first few months, I was not okay. I was taking opiates in pill form to function. I didn't even have an injury. I was taking Oxy. I was drinking a lot of wine. I was crying all the time. I felt like I made a mistake. I felt confused. I was terrified of I just felt like I completely failed again, and everyone got to see it. And I definitely had a misconception about how much other people care about what's going on in my relationships. I was like, everyone's going to be wondering and talking about it, and that's not true. I overinflated the anxiety, but we were legally married, and I was panicked about what the fuck am I doing? So we took a break from talking for a little while, and I said, I can't deal with divorce paperwork right now. Give me some time. So we didn't talk or see each other for a while, a couple months, I think. And then we had dinner a couple of times, and we talked. He did yell in my face and leave me alone at the restaurant one time, and the waitress came over and was like, "Are you okay?" And then at some point I was able to call him and say, we need to do an uncontested, like, what's it called when you're like on the same page? I said, I did all the research, and we need to do an uncontested divorce where you get what's yours, I get what's mine. We both agree. We're not splitting a home or kids or anything, and we just cut ties. And I said, it's important to me that we don't have a dramatic, like, movie type divorce. So if you can commit to that, I can commit to that. And at this point, we had been separated for a year. It was a year and a half, probably, before we did the divorce paperwork. So I filled out all the paperwork, and we reviewed it together, and we both took the day off of work one day and went to court and sat in front of a judge, and he said, "Is this you guys?" And we were like, "Yep." And he said, "You want a divorce?" And we were like, "Yep." And he said, "Do you both agree to what's in this document?" And we said, "Yep." And he said, "Boom, stamp, sign, you're done, get out of here. On to the next." And our marriage was over in less than 5 minutes. And we walked down the street from the King County Courthouse in Seattle, and we got drunk at a bar at 1:00 in the afternoon. And we actually laughed and laughed and laughed about like some of the funny stories that we had. And it felt like kind of nice closure to a really fucked up chapter. Yeah. I think I'm going to stop here because I need to like process some of this that's coming up for me and just take a break from talking about it. I think I need to take a break from talking about it, really. I'm going to hit pause on this. Another two-parter. Because I had another relationship after that marriage. I've had a few. I had one more serious relationship after that marriage, and I've had a few casual dating relationships that I want to share about, and some of my more recent dating experiences, which have been just as bad as the ones from 10 years ago. So thank you for joining me for this episode. And I want to thank you in advance for your respect regarding my vulnerable share today. I do not get hate messages yet, but they might come in the future. So if you're listening to this in the future or at any point, thank you in advance for not being a complete dick in the comment section. Yeah, I'm going to tap out. I'll be back for part 2 of my dating horror stories after I cry it out a little bit on my own time. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. I care about you and I care about myself. I'm grateful that I'm not making choices like this anymore. And let's manifest some healing, Holly. I really, really, really want these wounds to heal completely. I don't know if they ever will, but one can only hope. All right, catch you guys next time. Later.